Hey guys and gals, I got another one for you today. Today I'm excited to share my outlook on the Tier 10 Swedish medium, Udes 1516, platooned up with Cup, my old MSC buddy. We're on Malinovka Assault, and I wanted to feature the Assault as well just because I think some people struggle with it, but we're going to focus on the Swedium, and we're going to talk about engine power right away. You can see from Tier 8 to Tier 10, the horsepower to ton ratio decreases, so your acceleration gets worse. The terrain resistances do get better, so it kind of balances out a little bit. However, you do look to see the Tier 10 improve and get better, rather than... I don't feel like this thing takes substantial steps forward from the Tier 8 to the Tier 10. Not to say it's a terrible tank, and I was going to throw a bunch of comparisons in here, but it is kind of a tank on its own level. Even though it compares to some Tier 10 mediums in some aspects, you'd have to piece together like 5 or 6 of them just to put together what this tank is all about. And I've enjoyed it. I want to say I like it. I just haven't really had that good feel yet. The concealment is amazing. It's better than the Batchat. It's actually best in class. The view range is worse in class for Tier 10 mediums. And then as radio range goes, you can see it is the best in class, tied with the STB1. And you know me, I love my radio range, so that's really all I need to hear. Thanks for watching. Make sure you like, share, subscribe. Enjoy your Swediums, and I will catch you later. I'm just kidding. Of course, that's not the end of my review of this tank, but it is funny that they gave it the best in class for radio range. Like, that's something to brag about. Hopefully they don't actually believe that. The gun. The gun is probably my biggest issue, like gun slash ammo. It doesn't really have very good velocity on its shells. Its heat penetration stinks. Its accuracy is horrendous. It has this bouncy reticle that you have to deal with. Now, I'm going to be jumping around a lot, and that's because I don't really have comparisons for what this tank is all about. I just kind of want to show clips of struggles I've had with the tank. You can see we miss that Object 260's lower plate. We don't pen it anyways, bounce off. And you see the standard velocity gets worse as you go up. And then the premium velocity also gets worse as you go up. And then 310 penetration with the heat. With 0.38 accuracy, 310 pen is pretty horrendous. So you're spending extra money to maybe land heat shells that are not going to be reliably penetrating your target over distance, because you're not going to be able to hit where you're shooting. We finally land a shot into the lower plate of the T-54, and then we're going to pull up here. T-54 backs up. We're going to try to take this 260 down. Lower plate shot again. We bounce off that with our standard APCR, which is unfortunate. Now, here's another one. This is going to really show the velocity. And this is one of my first games that I played, so I really was not used to the velocity that this thing had. So I realized I have to lead a little bit more. So we're going to lead the Draugen, and I pulled the trigger. Not sure if that was going to hit, but I did lead him into the rock. A little bit later, just to really point out the gun handling issues, we auto-lock on a 30B. Maybe should have aimed that, but it's not like he was moving right to left very quickly. Just kind of showing off the 0.38 accuracy. And as we come around the corner, there's an AMX-30, Tier 9 French medium, and we slam that shell in. So getting back to Malinovka, really what I'm doing is just trying to get vision out for my team. Cup is up on the ridgeline in his Death Star. He is covering me. And haven't had a lot of success with the gun so far. Obviously, we're only up to 400 damage, and this is what I find myself doing in this tank. It's fast enough to get to forward locations. The gun's unreliable, so you know, if RNG's on your side, you're gonna have a good start. If it's not, you're going to have a rough start. Your team may pay for it. But what you can do in this tank is consistently fall back, work ridge lines, and the alpha damage on this thing allows you to rack up damage. And I can generally get 2,500 damage. I mean, there's games where when RNG is on my side, 4,000 is pretty easy. Alright, here's another battle. It was down to me, 2 heavy tanks, and a Sturv. So, take the Sturv out. The heavy gets well, I felt like it was a lucky shot into me. But this is where the .38 is really going to shine. And not to focus on all the negative stuff, it does have 13 degrees of gun depression. Best in class for tier 10 mediums, and obviously we already talked about the concealment. So 13 degrees of gun depression plus the mobility, which isn't the greatest, but it's enough. And the concealment allows you to get into situations, ridge lines from a distance. You can work them. Mid to short to even long range. You're not going to expose your tank with that 13 degrees of gun depression, so you're able to work a ridgeline. You have to deal with the bouncy reticle, but once you get used to it, you can work the ridgelines, not really expose yourself, and save your hit points for later if you need them. Now this tank really struggles in like raffle stomps, so those 15-2 games. Obviously, either way is an issue. With low DPM tanks, if your team is creaming the other team, then you're going to struggle to pack up the damage. You have the mobility to keep up with your team, but you don't have the DPM to have a beautiful game in those. As well as the other side of the coin, where your team is getting throttled, you can only fall back so many times before the red team's on top of you, and your gun just cannot get you out of situations like other medium tanks have. So playstyle wise, I'd say it plays a lot like the Progetto. You have to outspot tanks. You can use different locations because of your 13 degrees of gun depression. Doesn't have an auto reloader like the Progetto, but it does have high alpha. Now, once again, we're just trying to get vision out for our team here. You can see we're racking up the assist damage with 4,000 already. We have picked up quite a bit of damage now, so we're up to 2,300. And we're just using this Dead Conqueror to keep vision out. If they want to climb the hill, and they're going to have to stay lit the whole time they do it, which will allow my artillery and my tank destroyers time to get them. Alright, so this is one of the first 5 games that I had, and it was on Swamp, which I like to get early damage, control the middle vision, and in this game I missed a lot of early shots, so my team's going to pay for it, but I felt like I had a chance to win at the end, so enjoy it, and I'll talk about things that I wish that they would fix on this while you get to watch the end of this game. First one, shell velocity. It's really annoying in medium tanks to not have good shell velocity, to have to lead out your targets. To me, the medium tank is in the game to help destroy scout tanks, and with higher shell velocity, you're able to not have to lead the targets as much, and obviously be more effective scout killer with higher shell velocity. Now, the second thing is going to be accuracy at 0.38. This is where I talk about DPM is one thing, and it's really how fast your gun reloads, but effective DPM is how accurate your gun is, and also how much penetration you have, and those 3 together to me is what I call effective DPM. So I don't care how fast my gun goes, if I am not accurate or I can't penetrate my shots consistently, then my effective DPM is going to be a lot worse than what my actual DPM is, which I'll get into later. But the accuracy at 0.38, you just can't hit your targets reliably. which rolls into the third one. If you don't want to fix the velocity or the accuracy, the heat penetration really should be higher. At 310 for heat penetration, you're paying quite a bit of silver for a shell that is probably not going to hit where you're aiming. And at 310 penetration at tier 10, it's not going to consistently pen the tanks that you're shooting at. So to see an improvement there would be good. And like I said, I don't need all 4 of these things, but really just 1 out of the 4 I feel like would improve this tank greatly. And then finally for the DPM. If you don't want to improve the accuracy, you don't want to improve the penetration, then just get the DPM a little higher. This thing takes forever to reload, which is understandable because it's a high alpha medium tank. So I wouldn't blame them if they don't want to up the DPM. However, the effective DPM is quite tragic on this just because you are so inaccurate. The DPM is so bad, and the penetration is questionable as well. So not only is the DPM bad, but the effective DPM is pretty bad as well. Alright, so at this point I lost my 60 TP and my arty, and I was left to fend for myself, but I did miss a couple shots there that I felt could have been game changers, and that just kind of points out a little bit more of how I feel about the effective DPM of this tank. Now, getting back to our Malinovka game, the Reds are starting to make a push. I don't feel like it's over yet. It is 8-5. They still do have an artillery. At this point of the game, it's just a war of attrition. We're defending, so they have to either kill us or cap our base. With our positioning, we're forcing them to get into uncomfortable positions. I do feel like we are probably going to win this. Now, what should Red Team do to counter this? Well, if they just push right away, like got over to the 0 line and push up the 0 line altogether, they probably wouldn't be in the situation that they're in. But these 2 heavy tanks proved that it can be done because they did push up the 0 line when they were spotted. So had the Badger and the Jaegeru and the other tanks followed, they could have made a big push and potentially won the game. When I win this by assaulting, it's not because I win the A line, it's not because I control the vision in the middle, it's generally because I make an initial push up to 0 into F0 where they're at, or even get to this rock that this conquers behind. And if you get to there, you can keep the hill lit. If you get teammates to follow you up there, then get into the middle, controlling that vision, keeping them backed up off the hill so your team can continue to move forward, your artillery can continue to smash them, is important. That's my thought on Malinovka. When you're assaulting, I know a lot of people don't like this variant, but I feel like it's just because they're not sure how to win it, and I can win it from both sides. Not to say that I get in this matchup and I'm like, oh yeah, I'm going to win it for sure, because it still takes a team to win. Hopefully you enjoyed my breakdown of the Udes. It's not done yet. We're going to look at endgame here. I'm going to show you some more highlights. We'll talk a little bit more about the tank, and then I'm going to do a comparison to the Object 430, which is, I think, the opposite end of the spectrum of the Udes 1516. But this is only a second class, which I was really surprised by, so there's a lot of people doing a lot of good things in this tank. 7,000 assist damage, 2,800, 2 kills. It was only 1,400 base XP, so that's not the greatest, but for a tier 10 medium, that should at least be a first class, I think. So I got some clips pieced together, and we're going to talk about the strengths and weaknesses, is it worth it, and my comparison to the Object 430. We're going to start with what it's best in class. Out of all tier 10 mediums, it is best in class in concealment. It just beats out the Bat Chat. You can do things in this tank that only scouts and really the Bat Chat can do. Other medium tanks would struggle to get away with. Gun depression, 13 degrees. You can see me using this little ridgeline right here, and I barely have to expose my tank and then be able to return fire. Alpha damage, it's on point with the 121 and the Object 430U when it comes to alpha damage. And then radio range, it's tied with the STB1 and the TVP for the highest radio range, and that's kind of laughable. I hope Wargaming doesn't actually think that's like a real positive thing, because radio range doesn't matter. Sarcastically though, that's the only thing that matters. Then we're going to roll into the negatives. So the first one being vision. The lack of vision kind of makes up for the great concealment, even though I still think it has good vision to camo for a medium tank. It is the worst in class for vision. Next is shell velocity. Talked a lot about this. To me, medium tanks need to deal with scout tanks, and to do that effectively, you need shell velocity. So it's disappointing on the shell velocity. Premium pen, if you're going to be inaccurate and you're not going to have the shell velocity, I feel like you need more premium penetration. And then finally, the last thing, effective DPM. So the combination between accuracy, penetration, and just overall DPM, between the three of those, the effective DPM of this thing is garbage. Is that enough to make it or deem it unplayable? No, it's definitely a different flavor of tanks. And if you like variety of tanks, you should enjoy this once you get used to the play style. It's not going to give you a consistent result, but you will have some good games, you'll have some bad games. My biggest disappointment is the lack of progression from 8 to 10. Like 8 to 9 feels pretty good, but then 9 to 10 just feels like this tiny little step forward. So it would be nice to see one of the four things get improved. I feel like that would help the Tier 10 take just a tiny bit more step forward and make that progression a little bit farther where it needs to be. Alright, so comparing it to the 430, which is obviously on the other end of the spectrum, when I play my 430, I like to play it aggressive, up with my heavy tanks, flanking other heavy tanks, using my DPM to just go to their side, destroy them really fast, and move the game forward. I play it super aggressively. Obviously, this tank, you cannot do that with the lack of DPM. You're not going to hit your shots consistently. And that really affects how you're going to play the tank. I feel like it does play a little bit more like the Progetto. You're going to keep it at distance. You're going to keep falling back if needed. And you're going to use your mobility to get to a better position and work your damage up that way. This is my comparison. Obviously, a lot more games in the 430. But it is interesting how they kind of fall in line, but they're totally different play styles. So depends how I'm feeling. If I want to be super aggressive and high DPM, I'm going to play my 430 or any other medium tank that has that style. And if I'm looking for like a slower pace but high alpha can punish from distance, work ridge lines, there's nothing that's going to beat the Udes. That's all I got for you. I hope you enjoyed. Make sure you like, share, subscribe, and I will catch you in the next video.